Hi, this is Huang Zhenyu, along with my co-host Ken Wilcox, welcoming you to another episode of China 411. Today, the topic will be on artificial intelligence, and we have with us Victor Wang, who is managing partner at CEG Ventures. Welcome, Victor.
Thank you.
So tell us about yourself.
Yeah, basically, I came to Valley in 1985, got into Stanford. My PhD advisor, who happened to be neural network pioneers, he actually built a world first neuron, electronic neuron, in 1960s, almost 60 years ago. So when I did my research in the late 80s, there was a small blip of neural networks, artificial intelligence. Didn't really come out with any commercially viable product because this was almost 30 years ago. But I got a lot of exposure to AI, machine learning back then.
Going back a step, how you went to Stanford in 1985? Is that what you said?
1985, yes.
85, and what were you doing before that? How did you come to Stanford? How did that happen?
I came to Stanford from a China university called University of Science and Technology in China, which is considered one of the best universities
In
there.
Beijing?
It used to be in Beijing, then moved to Hefei, Anhui, and 中国科技大学. And
yeah.
so I graduated from there, then came to Stanford got my PhD. I studied both neural networks, later on mobile networks, as today's mobile phone. So neural networks didn't, like this 30 years ago, the hardware, the processing power was not even, the several magnitude, order of magnitude less than today. So it's a pure kind of research. It didn't come out with any commercial viable application. So neural network, actually, the machine learning have a 60 years history, starting from 1956, when the first word coined artificial intelligence. And over the last 60 years, there's many of the small sort of blips and didn't come out anything. Until 2006, there's a major breakthrough in the algorithm. And plus, the hardware today becomes much more powerful. And the third reason being that internet created so much data. If you use a rocket as a metaphor, the computing power is like an engine. Engine today is 10 orders of magnitude powerful than 30 years ago. Then this data created by internet, big data, is fuel. So now you have a powerful engine, you have a fuel. Then engine's design got a breakthrough. So now rocket is taking off.
Interesting.
So between becoming an investor and graduating from Stanford, what happened?
After I graduated from Stanford, I worked for many companies. One of the company I worked for, Paul Allen's company. This was in early 90s. He committed $100 million back then, invested in this company called Interval Research, trying to duplicate Xerox PARC's glory in 1970s. Xerox PARC invented the laser printer workstation, object-oriented programming. And so Paul said, you guys don't have to publish journal paper. You don't have to apply patent. All you have to do is imagine what human society will need in 10 to 20 years. So I was in charge of wearable computing. So basically, I think I applied and granted 12 patents, US patents, in 2 years. One of the patents is that basically, let's say we're having conference call, right, with a New York, Beijing, right? You want number one, this voice sounds to be high quality, like a real person. Number two, having certain direction. If New York comes from east, Beijing from west, right? So my patent is to build an array of speakers on your shirt or jacket, which is machine washable. Then you can listen, just sit here, very naturally talking as if you're talking to the real person, except you couldn't see them. Another patent that I had was that envision in 20 years, internet is embedded everywhere. Today we call it Internet of Things. Back then we just say everywhere is intelligent. How do you control environment? You want to turn down this lights, you want to turn up the volume, control the temperature of the room. What do you do? So my patent was that you wear this ring, you have a small touchpad on the finger to control your environment. So we did a lot of those really avant-garde, forward-looking things back then. This is Paul Allen's.
And that was only one category in that company, right?
Yeah, that's just
Wearables.
one category.
Yeah.
There's many other categories.
There were many other categories, but
Yeah.
you were responsible for that one.
Yeah, I was.
By the way, what happened to that company?
What happened to that company? This is meant to be, interval meant to be, Paul said, I'm going to put $100 million to support 10 years. So after 10 years, you know, become a whole portfolio of inventions, and some of it got commercialized. Some people spin off. I think one of our colleagues started to fund this initial search engine called Alta Vista. This is one of the earlier search engine. There's some other spin-offs. Some people started with virtual reality. Actually, we wore the goggle. This was 20 years ago, 25 years ago, to test the very first VR system back then. It's a very, actually today, you probably heard a Magic Leap, the AR company. We actually, back then, was studying those kind of things, directly project the image to your retina using laser type of thing. So a lot of that's why when I went back to China, people say, wow, this AI AlphaGo defeated one of the gold masters in South Korea. People was, wow, what happened? Here, Silicon Valley doesn't have so much surprise because people know these kind of research has been going on for the last 60 years. Like many of the research patent that I have, still not commercialized. It took generally 30 years from something lab idea to commercial product. Take another 20 years to become a fully commercialized, whether it's a PC or cell phone. So that's why Silicon Valley people are much more calm and cool when things come. Oh yeah, I know this has been going on. That kind of, yeah.
What year did you go back?
After interval research, I started co-founded my own company
Here in the Valley.
here in the Valley.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is this. Basically, this was 94. I said, internet is over because Yahoo is already doing, Mosaic is already doing the website. Next step should be mobile internet. So what we should do, in retrospect, we're like 10, 15 years way too early. But nevertheless, we built the world first handheld device that can do email, can browse website. Back then, your cell phone is still analog. You don't have even digital cell phone, no data. We built our own data network across area. So basically, then I brought this back to China to use this to do stock trading. So this is the world first mobile stock trading system anywhere in the world. And in 7 cities, in Shanghai, I can see the taxi drivers and small shop owners use our device to do stock trading. So we did those kind of
Very nice.
yeah.
So, what's CEG and what
Yeah,
you
basically,
wanted to
we
do in the U.S.?
Yeah, CEG Venture is, I started this last year, and we're a new fund, about $100 million and for early stage. And the reason I started with the fund is that this AI, in the 30 years I've been in Silicon Valley, I witnessed 3 major innovation waves. In 1980s, clearly it's PC. Generally, it takes 10 years to mature. Next wave was internet, starting Yahoo, Google. Then the third wave was mobile. Now mobile internet has come to a plateau because what's the sort of iPhone 8 versus 7 versus 6? It's kind of incremental today, right? That means that the industry getting matured, plateaued. And before every last wave matured, a new wave coming out. This fourth wave that I witnessed in the Valley is artificial intelligence. This was so hot. Every company is doing this. Google said we're no longer mobile first company, we're AI first company. Facebook, Microsoft, you name it, everybody is doing AI. And not only large companies, there's a tremendous opportunity for small companies. And that's why I felt that at this juncture of time, if you get into the industry, you may be able to invest in Google-like of a company.
What is it like in China,
What?
AI space?
AI, China clearly, it's very interesting because the people here has been studying AI for 60 years. So right now it's like, your cumulative 60 years of talent, experience, research, all of a sudden exploding. China, many universities in last 30 years, they don't want to sit on the code bench. They want to pursue whatever is hot, whatever you can get money. So in many years, not many research there. So today, they're not there. It's almost like when iPhone first came out, Chinese are using Nokia phone, right? There weren't anything comparable. But today, many Chinese phones, such as the Huawei's mobile phone, is almost as good as iPhone. It took them 10 years to catch up. Today, so when Silicon Valley start any new wave, there's a biggest gap between here and China. So China is catching up. However, China today has a much stronger manufacturing industry base and many talented people. And also AI need a lot of math. Chinese are pretty good at math, so they can catch up fairly quickly. Now they're catching up. Yeah.
So it's very interesting you mentioned a lot of this has been in development for decades, 30, 40, 60 years. But even here in Silicon Valley, there's just tremendous amount of talk about AI just changing the landscape of industries,
Right.
and potentially causing a lot of political problems,
Yeah.
unemployment
Huge
issues,
problem.
and there's no solution.
No solution.
And what I've heard for the first time is people, instead of saying, oh my God, new industries will be created to create new jobs, people are saying, I can't see new jobs.
Right.
I just see old jobs being destroyed.
Right.
I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, right now there's two schools of thought debating, because in the past, for many industrial revolution, people initially, like a machine or tools came out, the UK labor work smashed the machine, right? But eventually people find new job, a more creative job, more productive job. So one school said, don't worry, AI, people will have better things to do, right? More creative things to do. Another school is saying, wait, this time is different, because AI can not only replace your muscle, can also replace your brain. And as of today, as a technologist, I already see the potential that many human work can be replaced. Wall Street, I think Goldman Sachs just laid off hundreds of traders. You don't need the traders. Just algorithm can do the traders.
So how does that work, especially in a country like China where job is so important, where the government needs to grow in order to provide jobs?
Well, this is not just China's problem. This is everybody's problem.
Yeah.
I mean, some theorists, even to the extreme, predicting that in the future there's only 1% genius working, design this machine. 99% people taking universal income, stay, doing whatever they want. That's. I don't necessarily agree with this, but that's one extreme kind of a prediction.
Seems like in the U.S., there's this big conversation going on in the tech community. Now, the government, the administration seems to be not as focused. How is that playing out in China between the government and the technology community?
In other words, is the Chinese government thinking more about this than maybe the American government, as far as you know?
I think U.S. government. I think White House has this AI sort of white paper published a few months ago. I think at least in the last administration, they really understand the technology, pushing the progress. For this current one, I don't know. I mean, they're still in the chaotic situation, trying to figure out things. Chinese government traditionally, they always do this forward-looking thing. because that's sort of their tradition, 5-year plan, 10-year plan. And AI was just got into government radar. I think they just revised their long-term national science and technology strategic plan. They just added AI into this. I think this was like a few days ago. And but like Asian countries, Japan, China, Singapore, government tends to be more strong-handed for the industry. They're trying to plan ahead. There's a pro and the cons. We don't have time to discuss, but I would say Chinese government probably, once they realize how important it is, they'll be much more coordinated. And plus, they have a resource. They have a whole lot more money than U.S. federal government to pour into the area that they think that are important.
So how do you see China and U.S. compete or collaborate with each other in this pretty exciting?
Yeah, this is a
area?
very interesting topic. AI today, there's a trend called open source. Google, Facebook, the TensorFlow, they all open their source. So given that they opened basically this open source will help those later comers don't have to go through a lot of hassles. They can immediately start and deploy those things. And I think open source will help China to catch up a little bit quicker because the engineers, they can just use open source. On the other hand, open source is also ecosystem. It's like Android, right? I mean, Google controls this TensorFlow. They don't necessarily open everything. They probably still hold something core to them to their advantage. So by having open source, yet on one hand you help the other people who lag behind. On the other hand, all the developers in the world are developing on your platform, so you control the ecosystem. So there's a pro and cons. That's from the industry point of view. I think that potentially, because AI is applicable to all industries, so there's no way that one country can just do this in isolation. Every country has to work with each other. And for example, like autonomous driving, right? What's important is the data that each car, like today, Google has a few cars. They can collect data, but it would take forever for them to tour all the street in the entire United States, let alone the world, right? What if every single car put a camera, put some data collection, they can share like crowdsourcing data. Then quickly can build a worldwide map for everywhere. Then that will benefit everybody. So people are talking about democratization of AI.
So how likely is that, and what are the obstacles?
Well, obviously, sharing anything cross boundaries of a private company, let alone border of a country, is traditionally difficult, right? I mean, among the companies, you have to convince them that I will gain more than I lose, right? I think, I personally think, at least within the United States, companies like autonomous driving or even medical, people will eventually go that route, given they can provide protection of privacy. For example, you can take out all your name out, encrypt all this data. And however, cross-country sharing data is probably hard because there's a lot of politics going on, especially given the backdrop of all the countries, US, Europe, going back to nationalism, these rhetoric of, I'm the first, making me great again. Everybody's doing this. Then this create a potential barrier this is sort of anti-globalization, right? This is anti-technology cross.
We see it everywhere.
Yeah, we see it everywhere. It's not just U.S. So this is a potential problem for those cross collaboration among between countries, among countries.
And then going back a little bit about this idea, ecosystem and platform and architecture, you can argue that when it came to semiconductor, computing was built on x86.
Right.
It was open, but Intel kind of had a lot of control. On the internet, it was based on internet protocols largely developed here in the US.
Right.
On cell phone cellular, you could say it's iPhone or it's Android. Both are very American driven.
Right.
How would that look in AI? Do you think it's the same paradigm going forward?
I think
or
AI,
is it gonna be different?
as we can see today, is still absolutely U.S. leading, Silicon Valley leading. No question about it. You know, Google being number one, and NVIDIA being the chip maker. You know, it's almost like Google being the old Microsoft, NVIDIA being the old Intel, right? I mean, this is like one company control the chips, one company control the software. So going forward, I think you know, because these ecosystem has a winner-take-all kind of characteristics, right? Because if I'm a developer, right now there are multiple systems, like Facebook. Facebook have a cafe. You know, Microsoft has, Amazon has their own system. It's really hard. I often got this question from friends: "Oh, which platform I should take?" Because once you take a platform, you are investing your development, your codes into this. It's really hard for me to learn from all the platform, follow the changes, So once I commit to the one, I'm gonna commit to.
You're stuck there.
It's just stuck there, right? Like a marriage. So
By getting too many frequent flyer miles with one airline.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you're
yeah.
stuck.
You can always give it to your friends.
So basically, as we're speaking, Google's TensorFlow has the most of the developers. I think 10 times more than other platforms. That doesn't mean TensorFlow is the best in all aspect, you know, in terms of technical features. But you know, once they build it, you know, Microsoft Windows was not necessarily the best operating system, right? Once you gain the volume, momentum, everybody build. Then it's really hard to replace or dislodge.
So investing on behalf of CEG, do you have any charter or mandate to either bring the technology back or do any work with China?
No, basically we're just like any other VC companies. You know, I'm excited. You can tell I'm excited about technology because I can understand. Today, that's one of our fun advantage. That because AI involve a lot of deep tech, you have to understand operating system, chips, algorithm, mathematics. Not many investors, traditional investors, even VC investors, can really dive into the technology, understand them.
That's rare.
Yeah, unlike, you know, if you do Amazon, oh yeah, I can understand. You use the internet to sell books. Everybody can understand a business model. This is not about business model, about technology. Like sensors, radar, LiDAR, you know, involve a lot of physics. Actually, my PhD training really helps because I had to take a lot of courses to get a PhD. You know, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 courses covering a lot of area. When I was running my company as a CEO, I thought, gee, this is total waste. To be a CEO, all you need is to know the financial numbers plus, you know, the revenue minus expense equal to your profit, right? Now, as an investor, wow, this is a totally useful training. That's number one. And when I talk to technology entrepreneurs, they feel connected with me because I can appreciate, I can understand. So if you're just financial investor, it's really hard to make a connection with them. And another one is because I built my own company, I know how the company from zero to, you know, IPO, the process. Another advantage that we have is that being a Stanford alumni in the Valley, you have a tremendous, you know, extensive alumni network that can. China is also one advantage that some of the applications like autonomous driving, medical, Chinese have a huge market. We don't necessarily have to bring them there. If there's a market fit, we can definitely provide value there, that we can connect them to channel partners, marketing people for technology here who generally doesn't know. Can you probably, you know, for small, young technical companies to go China, they probably take half a year, 1 year to orientate themselves.
At least.
At least. So we can help them to get around running to knock on the doors of customers.
So given two things. One is your deep knowledge, really, of this area, artificial intelligence, on the one hand, and given on the other hand that our China 411 series is to a great extent about Sino-American relations.
Right.
Project into the future for us. Will this fourth wave, artificial intelligence, will that lead to China and the U.S. getting along together better or potentially less well? What do you think?
Yeah, I think China-U.S. relationship are predominantly determined by the political atmosphere, not by technology. So technology is neutral. Basically, it can create it, but technology itself have an intrinsic characteristic that require sharing, require exchange of information, require collaboration, globalized, right? So any technology, whether it's internet or AI, but today's worrisome situation is that because United States going back to this nationalism kind of rhetoric and sort of a threaten to have a trade war with not only China, with Japan, putting high tariffs, all these are hindering technology collaboration, hindering overall progress of humankind. So these are the concern regarding the two countries' relationship. I think we as a business community, we're really worrisome. We want to see more open. Not only U.S. open this market, China also open more further its market, have a more to encourage more collaboration, more exchange of information, and to leverage each country's unique advantages. But now the situation is a little bit sort of fuzzy. Nobody knows what will happen down the road, and we hope the situation will improve.
Well, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. And do you have any more questions?
No, I think
All
that's a lot. Thank you.
Well,
Okay.
this wraps up another episode of China 411. Until next time, see you in the future.
Great.
Thank you.